case, we may not have any loss at all. So it may not provide any loss. But left hand side case, always loss is present, and this is the heat loss. Okay, so then you see the wave characteristics are completely different, right? Okay, let me give you one example in unbounded media. Okay, so now we have one antenna. So you can consider a Hertzian dipole antenna or half wavelength dipole antenna, whatever. In the vicinity of the antenna, we have very close to antenna, we have both this evanescent wave and propagating wave. For evanescent wave, if you calculate time average Ponting vector, it is 0 because no energy transfer from left to right or through any given cross section. But if you go away from it, in that case, mostly you have the propagating wave. So that's why we call far field of the antenna. We use two terms, near field of the antenna and far field of the antenna. Okay, in the near field, you have then both of these two different types of wave, evanescent wave as well as the propagating wave. Okay, so you can compare even evanescent wave with your circuit concept, LC tank circuit. So energy is stored here in space. Okay, it does not transfer or does not propagate. Well, then how I am coming to this point mathematically, again, it is a repetition. I will suggest please go back to your EM theory and read these things. So now let's say we consider a lossy dielectric material. But it is lossy. So if it is lossy, then epsilon, it is a complex quantity, epsilon dashed minus j epsilon double dashed. Now you know gamma, that is equal to alpha plus j beta. So you learned one expression, if you recall, in this case, it is j omega square root of mu epsilon dash into 1 minus j tan delta. Tan delta already we defined. It is the loss tangent, and that is equal to epsilon dash by epsilon, epsilon double dash by epsilon dash. Now, if we have finite sigma, in that case, what happened? So for finite sigma, gamma, this is equal to j omega square root of mu epsilon 1 minus j sigma by omega epsilon. Okay, so alpha plus j beta now takes this form. Now, if you have a good conductor, then you can approximate it by j omega square root of mu epsilon square root of sigma by j omega epsilon. So this is for a good conductor, and that is equal to 1 plus j square root of omega mu sigma by 2. Now, if you have both of these two terms, that means epsilon is a complex quantity and sigma non-zero, then you put here in this equation, you put epsilon is equal to epsilon dash minus j epsilon double dash. So it becomes much more complicated, and in most of the cases it is not covered in UG book. Okay, so where we can see that type of scenario in semiconductor material, in a doped semiconductor. Okay, this is again one important information. For intrinsic semiconductor materials, that is without any doping, sigma is almost zero. Even though we are calling it semiconductor, you can approximate it by a very good dielectric material for intrinsic semiconductor. But now when you are doping it, you are increasing actually carrier concentration. So you have a finite sigma value. You can't neglect it. And in addition to that, silicon wafer, it has also dielectric properties. So it will have finite loss tangent value. So then it becomes much more complicated. And the physical significance of imaginary beta already I explained by evanescent way. Okay, then I'm going back. Okay, till this point, do you have any question? Then we can take a few quick questions. Otherwise, we will continue. Next, TM mode. So by definition, in this case, H8 equal to 0. Since H8 equal to 0, we have to start with the reduced wave equation for small h8. Now, I'm not again reading it simply. You please go through it. The states are exactly similar like TE case. And this is the final expressions for electric field and magnetic field components. So here also propagation constant beta is represented by square root of a square minus kc square, which depends on mode. And now if you put, for example, let's say 0 0, m equal to 0, n equal to 0. So because of the sinusoidal term, all the terms vanishes. Similarly, you check, there is no TM10 or 01 mode. Among different modes, if I put different combination of M and N and calculate the corresponding cutoff frequency, then we see that TM11 mode, it has the lowest cutoff frequency. But for a given dimension of a rectangular waveguide, if I now compare between the cutoff frequency of TM11 and TE01, TE01, it will have lower value. Well, that's why you call it dominant mode. TE10 has lower value. So I am directly going to the field plot. So here also magnetic field, it forms loop. Now magnetic field forms loop, so that means it has two components, but in the direction of propagation, we don't have any magnetic field component. So according to our axis definition, Z is the propagation direction. If you recall, along A we represented X. So here, this one. Well, so according to this, so that means if I go back here, then all the magnetic fields will be on XY plane, because we don't have any component of magnetic field in the propagation direction, but magnetic field forms loops, so it will be on XY plane. So you can, yes, please. Any question? Well, so this dashed line represents magnetic field on a given cross section, and look at the electric field. It looks like half circle. Okay, so it better to say half loop. Now, this figure 2, it is the side view. If you look, so electric field starts from one metal, then travels forward and comes back to the same metal. So it forms loop. So in the direction of propagation, we have electric field component. So it looks like a mirror half with respect to the central plane. This is the field distribution for TM11 mode. Well, now this is, so till this point, we have the electric field, magnetic field distributions, expressions for cutoff frequencies. Now we are going to discuss about the mode characteristics and wave attenuation. Well, so wave attenuation, if I consider PEC, inside it is free space or dry air, then we don't have any attenuation. But practically it is not PEC, it is a metal. So we have conductor loss. Now, considering that inside we have dry air, then we don't have any dielectric loss. The only loss component is due to conduction loss. Last year we discussed in details. Now, if I plot that value, the value is here. So actually, I wrote the closed form expressions here. If you look here, alpha C, it is represented in terms of the waveguide dimensions A and B, and the surface resistance RS. RS is related to your skin depth, if you recall. It is equal to square root of omega mu naught by twice sigma. Now, if you look at this expression, denominator, we have 1 minus omega c square by omega square. Omega c is the cutoff frequency in the radian per second. So that means at the cutoff, it goes to infinity. Okay, so if I plot it, it looks something like this. Now you see, he's showing it for different dimensions. For B equal to A, it looks lower. For B equal to A by 2, the attenuation is higher. Well, so TM11 mode, it is also having high attenuation. We can predict because if you look at the plot, so magnetic field, it becomes tangential to all the side walls. So that's why TM11 mode comparatively has higher loss, conduction loss. Well, now why it changes with B? Let me explain a little. Well, so this conceptually it is important, and if you want to utilize the waveguides in practical applications, so your concept, particularly this physical concept, should be very clear. Otherwise, you can't solve engineering problem. Well, we are going to discuss on the attenuation, how it changes with waveguide dimension. Now, let me first draw one rectangular waveguide. Zero A and 0B. B is its height. I am considering only TE10 mode. So in most of the application, we'll use this mode only. So if I draw, let's say arrow height represents the magnitude of electric field, then it is highest on the central plane, and then it varies sinusoidally from the expression. On the side walls, it becomes 0. What about the magnetic field? They form loop, right? And I can use my right hand to predict the direction of magnetic field. So your thumb should point towards the electric field direction. Now here, I am using, let's say, WR90. This is a standard waveguide. Okay, its inner dimension, it is 0.9 inch by 0.4 inch. It's given. Now, if I change A, if I change A, then cutoff frequency will change. I don't want to change A. But what I am doing, I'm changing its height. It is called reduced height waveguide. So in some of the applications, because of space limitations and other, we use this type of waveguide. Now, here also we have similar field distribution, right? So for TE10 mode, then electric field varies sinusoidally. Okay, now let's say I am sending 1 watt of power. to zoom out. That button is not working. Okay. Yes, now. Well, so for both of these two different cases, I'm sending 1 watt of power. Now, if you recall, there was one constant with electric field and magnetic field expressions. So, if I compare the electric field magnitude, left figure and right figure, for right figure, since area is small, I am sending the same amount of power, so it might be having higher electric field components, higher magnetic field components. Okay, so since we have high electric and magnetic field components, then what will happen? So here Js is high. So in the second case, induced current density is higher. That means it will be lossy, more lossy. So you decrease the size, then at the same time you are making it lossy. So this is just a general observation, not just for waveguide. It is like a thumb rule for any guiding structure. Then coaxial cables that we will learn later. Now coaxial cable of different cross section, they can have same characteristics impedance, let's say 50 ohm. I have to just maintain the ratio of inner conductor and outer conductor. We can have then different cross sections of coaxial cables with 50 ohm characteristics impedance. Then the thumb rule is that if you decrease cross section, you are increasing loss. Why? Same reason. I'm sending same amount of power in all these guiding structures, but because of reduced cross section, then your electric field, magnetic field component will be high. Now, if you have a dielectric material inside, dielectric loss is proportional to electric field. So dielectric loss increases as well as conduction loss also increases. So you remember, this is like a thumb rule. You can write down in your copy, and now you know the reason. So if I decrease the cross section, the loss will increase. This is true not only for waveguide, it is true for any guiding structure. It's like a thumb rule. And now, why it happens, you know the reason.
Sir, but in this case, the amount of conductor material is also decreasing.
No, yes, but you see, that is not the main fact. Your heat loss is proportional to Js square. So if you increase Js by a factor of 2, you are increasing loss by a factor of 4. And now you are wrong because you see, where from which surface loss is coming mostly. I explained it is from the top plane and bottom plane. Now that dimension I could not change, because if I change a dimension, then your cutoff frequency will change. So why this arbitrary things happening? Well, then your cutoff frequency will change. So that's why these two surfaces remain same. So only thing I reduced is the height, sidewalls area. Okay, that was a good question. So that means you understood the problem. Well, now coming back here, you see now. Then when the height is a by 2, then we have more loss compared to b equal to a. B equal to A means it becomes a square. Now, if it becomes square, we face another problem. Again, we need to go back. Yeah. So, if I take a square waveguide, let's say this is the electric field distribution for, okay, electric field is continuous, don't be confused. So it starts from one plate and it goes to another plate. So I'm just by arrow height, I'm representing their magnitude, but actual electric field starts from bottom and goes till top plane. Well, now for a square waveguide, this is the field distribution for TE10 mode. It's along X. This is okay. The same logic can holds in this direction also, right? Then in this case, we call it TE01 mode. So if I compare the electric field and magnetic field distributions for TE10 and 01 mode, they are perpendicular to each other. You consider the magnetic field groups for TE01 and TE10, they are perpendicular. So if we have two perpendicular field components, in that case, we don't have any coupling. Coupling means basically one mode won't disturb the other mode, as if they are independent. They are in two different guiding structures. Okay, so no coupling. So we call them orthogonal mode. So for that, electric field and magnetic field both should be perpendicular to each other. For TE01 and TE10, that is satisfied. Well, so we call it orthogonal modes. Now, the dimension A, it determines the cutoff frequency of TE10. Similarly, the dimension B, it determines the cutoff frequency of TE01. So if we have A equal to B, so TE10 and 01, they have the same cutoff frequency. For W190, if I take 0.9 by 0.9 inch, then it can start right from 6.56 gigahertz. Okay, so now since they are orthogonal to each other, we should not face any problem. But when you are going to design a microwave system, in microwave system you have many passive components, many active components. So it is not just a straight rectangular waveguide. So basically you have to deal with waveguide sticks, waveguide then stub, then you can have twisted waveguide section. So in general, we call them discontinuities. So this irregularity, we call it discontinuities. We may have also junction from 1 to it is power dividing into 2 ports or 3 ports. So all this in general we call discontinuities. Now at the discontinuities, this electric field or magnetic field distribution, it changes completely, and it's difficult to give you actually the analysis part. It's better to use full wave simulator. So it is not like TE10 or 01 mode, and there we face the problem. So there at those discontinuities we can have field coupling. So TE10 mode can be converted to TE01 mode. So that's why In a microwave system, we can't use like this. If it is a straight rectangular waveguide, yes, you can. TE10 and TE01, you can use both of them. And if you actually use both of them, you are effectively increasing the bandwidth by 2 times or the channel capacity by 2 times, because the same thing you are using twice. But in microwave system, because of the discontinuities, you can't do that. It is a problem. Well, then what we do? We don't want TE01 mode in general, only TE10 mode. If that is the scenario, I have to decrease the, well, so to have at the same time, I will also want to maximize the bandwidth, monomode bandwidth, or the bandwidth of single mode operation. So that is for TE10 mode. Now TE10 mode, I said for W190, it starts from 6.56 gigahertz. So next one will appear near 13 gigahertz. So I want to use, let's say, till 13 gigahertz. Then what should be the value of B to avoid T01? So if I want to use the rectangular waveguide for TE10 mode till 13 gigahertz, then the cutoff frequency of TE01 mode should be at least 13 gigahertz. To do that, B should be A by 2, half of this. So if I take B equal to A by 2, then I can confirm that over this region, we don't have any TE01 mode. Okay, this is the logic. Now, I'll go back. Stop. Here. So I think you can see my slide. If you can't, please report to me. Well, so now I am considering alpha C versus normalized frequency. So F by Fc is 1, that represents the cutoff where alpha C goes to infinity. Now you see, one of the main reason I said why we use rectangular waveguide, it is less lossy compared to other popular guiding structures. So that's why we don't use it near cutoff frequency, and the suggested value you start from 1.25 times of cutoff frequency. Now 6.56 is the cutoff for W190. Then you take 1.25 times and check what should be the value. Okay. Now upper side we take a margin of 10%. Okay, to make it sure that we don't have any TE01 or TE20 mode. TE20 mode. So that's why the effective bandwidth we define 1.25 to 1.9 gigahertz. Now here we plotted alpha C. If we have both alpha C and alpha D I did not discuss here. So in that case, if I have, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because it was showing some network issue. Anyway, so now if you have both alpha C and alpha D, in that case, if I plot the combined loss, alpha C plus alpha D versus 3.6, it becomes minimum at 1.5 times of Fc, approximately 1.5 times of Fc. So when you have both dielectric loss and conductor loss. So when you have both, if you fill it up with some dielectric material, then, well, so this information you should memorize. That 1.5 Fc loss is minimum, approximately. Now look at the waveguide dimensions. They did not come arbitrarily. So you might have learned about this, that most of the waveguide parts, it's originated during Second World War in MIT Radiation Lab, and that time actually waveguide concept came for the first time. So they have to use some ready-made things, and what they used, it was actually pipe available for water supply, and that falls in the expand region. Well, so from that actually expand came into existence, and the corresponding version of circular waveguide, and from that the rectangular waveguide for minimum loss. So look, for X band W190, we'll follow USA this terminology. W190, UK one is not popular. So W190, the dimension it is given, waveguide inner size 0.9 by 0.4 inch. So it is not exactly half, it is little less than half, and it is intentionally to avoid or to keep some margin basically for P01 mode. So it is 0.9 by 0.4 inch, and you see the how this name came. 90, here the broad dimension is 0.90 inch. Similarly, you go to KU band WR62, then the inner dimension is 0.622. Okay, so it came, the name came from its dimension, broad dimension. And now I'm coming back to X band. Even the cutoff frequency 6.56, then now effective bandwidth is 1.5 times of cutoff frequency to 1.9 times of cutoff frequency. So you calculate it, it is 8.2 to 12.4. Also, I'm just reading out some of the popular waveguides. These are the standard waveguides. If you buy here in US or in the Netherlands, everywhere the same dimension. So W190, then WR62. Basically, what is written just after this band, KU, that is K under, then K, then we have K above WR28. So after this, one of the most well used band is W, and the corresponding waveguide is WR10, 75 to 110 gigahertz. But here they could not maintain that ratio because the dimension is becoming so small, then the margin they could not maintain. You see WR10 dimension is 0.1 by 0.05 inch. Now if I ask you, let's say you have the flexibility to choose both B and A. Okay, you have your machining facility, and then you can choose any value. Now if I ask you, okay, give me the optimum value of B and A for an application, let's say 300 gigahertz to 330 gigahertz, 300 to 330. I think you can calculate, just follow this logic, do back calculation and find out the value. So you can expect this kind of short.
Sir, you are muted.
Okay, so could you hear that terahertz thing I said?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, what I'm saying that let's say you have the flexibility to choose any value of B and any value of A. In that case, I'm giving you a band, let's say 300 gigahertz to 350 gigahertz. Now choose your B and A. You have the fabrication facility. So how to choose optimum A and how to choose optimum B? Now you have the idea. You can do back calculation because I just went step by step. So you can expect this type of short numerical question. Okay, so basic condition is that at the mid band attenuation should be minimum. Well, we did not discuss about the phase constant variation beta. In your practical class, actually I discussed it. Let me spend few minutes because you missed it. Sorry. So you spent so much time on alpha, then what about beta? Well, beta, if you recall, it is the change of phase per unit length, twice pi by lambda g inside the guided structure. So lambda g, that is the guided value. And what is k? It is 4 pi by lambda. So dispersion diagram, it comes from the dispersion relationship. There are many forms. I prefer three from beta by k. Sorry. Or beta, let us write down beta by k naught. So K naught corresponds to free space then. Access frequency. Now, what can be the minimum possible value? It is 0, and this is let's say 1.0 point. So if I take beta by K naught, it is becoming lambda by lambda g. So sometimes in some book you will see they are plotting actually lambda by lambda g. That's the same. Or sometimes omega beta, sometimes lambda g versus lambda naught. They are basically the same thing. But we have many important information from this plot. So if I plot it in E10 mode, it looks like this. E10 mode. So when beta is 0, it corresponds to cutoff frequency. Or W190, if I ask you plot dispersion diagram, then FC you have 6.56 and accordingly you plot it. Now, you see, if it is less than 1, beta by K naught is less than 1. So that means phase velocity is more than the velocity of light in free space. So in that case, what we call it is a fast wave. So for air-filled rectangular waveguide, this is one important observation. So this is for air-filled rectangular waveguide. And this beta by K naught equal to 1, it separates its space into two regions. When it is more than 1, this is the slow wave part, and when it is less than 1, this is the fast wave part. Okay, you can note it down. I am not sure because I am getting a message here that your whiteboard is not recorded. It's not being recorded. Anyway, now what I am doing, let's say, so here I considered a rectangular waveguide. Dimension is given A and B. So I considered first epsilon r equal to 1, which corresponds to dry air or free space. So basically, then this red curve, it is for epsilon r equal to 1. Now, if I fill it up with some material, dielectric material, for which we have, so this is for finite epsilon r, it is more than 1. So in that case, what we see, first of all, cutoff frequency decreases. Cutoff frequency decreases by a factor of root epsilon. So this new FC, let me call it FC. This is equal to FC by epsilon. And not only that, now in this second case, it supports both fast wave as well as slow wave. And this is the transition point. Well, so this curve is important, and in many applications we use this curve actually to explain many of the phenomena. It is called dispersion diagram. Dispersion diagram. Okay, so memorize it. Well, let me stop here. Next day we will start circular waveguide. But circular waveguide and coaxial cable, they since use cylindrical coordinate system, we can't avoid Bessel functions. So mostly we will be discussing about the mode characteristics, not the derivation. So for now, let us take some question.
Sir, like in that question where we had to select A and B.
One by one, please. One by one. Yes. Anish. Please continue, one of you.
Yes, sir. So in that question where you said that we have to select A and B, so you said you will give a frequency of operation like 330 gigahertz. So what will that frequency be? Will that be the cutoff or will that be the mid band?
No. What I will give you some band. Okay, let's say 300 gigahertz to 330 gigahertz. This is my application requirement. So this application, if I have that application requirement, so I should have minimum attenuation over this, right?
Yes.
So accordingly, you can calculate A and B.
Okay, so this will be calculated from which graph? Like from the attenuation curve.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
So we have some thumb rules like thing. You have to use that information. You don't make any curve, any plot.
Okay, so I got.
There is one question that to avoid orthogonal TE01 mode, we set B less than equal to A by 2. Yes, this is the only option. And that is why bandwidth is limited to 1.25 times to 1.9 times of FC. We don't have any other solution. But that is also huge. You see, 1.25 to 1.9, it is not a small bandwidth. You take some example, Wi-Fi. What is the maximum bandwidth you are using? Do you have any idea? Actually, the ISM band that is defined from 2.4 to 2.485, you have whole 85 megahertz bandwidth. Take the ratio. It is very little. And no company utilizes this whole 85 megahertz bandwidth. You consider your 4G connection or 3G connection. What is the bandwidth? It is in megahertz. Okay, so 1.7 to 1.9, this whole band government sold to many companies. So one company can use, I forgot the value, it is just few megahertz. They can't go above that. What exactly happens to E field and H field? It is not filed, it is filled in unbounded medium. Then what I am discussing over last 1 week, for any guiding structure, that is actually a bounded medium, right? And in the unbounded medium, you have propagating mode, you can have Evanson mode, so that you learned in your EM theory. If it is a lossless case, then I said for a plain monochromatic wave, electric field, magnetic field, they are in same phase. So that means where you have the electric field peak, at the same point in space and time, you have magnetic field peak, right? If it is lossless. But if it is lossy, then it decreases exponentially and there is a phase difference. You go back to your EM theory. So that's why there is a prerequisite for microwave engineering. I can't cover each and every topic of EM theory here. Any other question, please? Yeah, thanks, Anish. That mouse wheel I tried to zoom out, but that time it was not working. Any other question? Well, then let us stop here. So let me remind you about the test on this Saturday. So at 10:30 it will go live and you can start at 10:40. Any other question? Then I'm going to end this meeting.